Okay, so what do you think? Do you think global warming is our fault?
I think that human activity has made worse the effects of global warming.
Do you know how global warming occurs?
Yes, I do. We're looking at the amount of increased pollution in the atmosphere, which actually is both reflecting the sun's energy, but also trapping the heat that's produced from the Earth itself within the atmosphere. As those concentrations increase, the atmosphere will warm, ice caps will melt, and global warming occurs.
Yeah. Do you know the effects of global warming, and if so, can you name them?
I can. Certainly we're going to have a more polluted environment, but I guess one of the biggest effects is that we're going to produce or increase the melting of glacial ice. That's going to impact in countries like Tanzania. For example, the glaciers on Kilimanjaro, which will be gone within 20 years. These may be a source of fresh water for local people, but maybe more significantly is the impact on the Arctic and the Antarctic and the amount of fresh water which will be put into the oceans.
Yeah. Do you find it fair that the main contributors like America and China of global warming are not doing anything to reduce the impacts?
I think it is unrealistic of America to not be taking steps. They are perfectly well aware of what the issues are and have a long history of burning fossil fuels. And maybe part of the problem is that most of our American presidents have been supported by the oil fields of Dallas and Texas, and that's supported their campaigns. That has to stop. Obama, he's doing his best to do that, but he's going up against the oil giants of America. With respect to China, most countries that have become developed over time because they were able to produce and manufacture goods. We did it. We cut down our forests. We have moved on from that, but China's doing the same process. Whilst it would be better for them to be using alternative energies, can we really criticise them for doing exactly the same thing that we did?
Yeah. What little things could we do every day to reduce the impacts of global warming?
It is about reducing the burning of fossil fuels in countries that are more economically developed. So restricting maybe car access, finding alternative ways in which to fuel cars, certainly producing alternative energies and restricting the amount of carbon dioxide and other gases which are put into the atmosphere.
Do you think we are doing much to help reduce the impacts of global warming?
I think we say we do a lot. In actuality, do we do a great deal? Probably not.
Why do you think politicians try to defend humanity saying it's not our fault?
Nobody wants to take the blame. But to be fair, global warming is not caused by human activity, but it is made worse, and maybe we need to find a middle ground. There have been periods of cooling in the past and periods of warming in the past, none of which we're responsible for or involved with.
Can you tell us your opinion on global warming?
I don't think we're going to be able to do anything significant about it. We are making it worse, but I think that process was going to happen anyway. We should be limiting the amount of fossil fuels that we burn. We should be trying to do something about the levels of pollution, absolutely, but we will never stop the changes that occur through global warming.
Okay, thank you very much. Alright, today we're going to start off with a discussion on global warming. And do you think global warming is our fault?
I think we can't argue that it isn't our fault. There's lots of deniers, particularly in America with politics, that say it isn't our fault. But if you look at the data, if you compare a graph of sort of global warming or global temperature rise to one of carbon dioxide levels that we've outputted through burning fossil fuels, then it's irrefutable. It's definitely our fault. But in that fault, it increases the responsibility that we've got to do something about it.
Yeah. Do you know how global warming occurs?
I do.
Yeah.
Do you want me to expand on that?
Yeah.
So the primary reason is things like carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, which it stops the heat that the sun radiates onto the surface of the planet from escaping. So that warmth stays in, it heats the air around it up, and you end up with an overall global temperature rise over a period of time.
Do you know the effects of global warming? If so, can you name them?
The big ones that we're most concerned about from our perspective are melting of the ice caps. So the ice cap melts, it adds more water to the oceans. That means the water levels increase, so the rivers won't flow as much. We'll get increased flooding. It increases things like extreme weather events. So we've had lots of flooding certainly in this country, and forest fires in America and Australia and so on over the last 50 years have increased. and then things like the global conveyor belts of ocean currents starting to slow down. So if our country is as warm as it is compared to other areas of the same latitude because of the Gulf Stream, but if the planet continues to warm as it is, the Gulf Stream will stop and we'll be plunging the same sort of temperatures you get in sort of northern Russia, Canada and so on.
Do you find it fair that the main contributors, America and China, of global warming, are not doing anything to reduce the impacts of global warming?
No, it's not. The difficulty from our perspective to argue that, of course, there's a big population issue and there's a big manufacturer issue, especially with China, because they manufacture so much of what we consume here, but they need to take greater responsibility on a top government level than they currently do. I know in America there's at least one state that are trying to get themselves carbon neutral, so they're adjusting from using fossil fuels to wind power and so on, but it needs to come from the top rather than at sort of a local government perspective.
What little things could we do every day to reduce the impacts of global warming?
I think things like the way we get ourselves transported around, so things like if we can get the school bus rather than coming in individual cars, or if we can walk or use the bike, that certainly has some sort of an impact. And things like as well trying to reduce, there's obviously the bag tax and stuff now, if you like, with the 5 pence bags and whatnot. And I think people forget that bags are made from crude oil, so there's increasing demand on crude oil there, which is stuff that we need elsewhere, and actually processing crude oil into something useful requires a lot of fossil fuel energy in its own right.
Yeah. Do you think we are doing much to help to reduce the impacts of global warming?
I think as a country we have the intention to do lots, but we're perhaps for all sorts of reasons not doing enough. So I know that we've got in the North Sea, we've got lots of wind farms which are producing lots of energy, and we've got plans for the big tidal lagoon in Swansea, which is currently being held back because of ecological reasons, but certainly the intentions are there. Whether we're doing it, sort of grabbing it with both hands in the way that we ought to is perhaps open for debate.
Why do you think politicians try to defend humanity, saying it's not our fault?
I think, and this isn't necessarily just our government, but certainly the American government, there's a lot of people within a lot of governments who have got thumbs in other pies, so they might have links with other companies who use or produce fossil fuels, and therefore they need to sort of maintain that. It's expensive to invest in these things. The tidal lagoon in Swansea will cost, I know however many millions, if not billions of pounds to actually to bring to completion, so it's an expensive thing, and I suppose the concern is that there might be priorities elsewhere on a sort of a more economic scale rather than on a global scale.
Can you tell us your opinion on global warming?
My big opinion is that we have a big issue with denying it, and I think from a scientific point of view it is undeniable, and what we need to do is to convince all the politicians and all the big businesses that it is all our faults, and it is our responsibility to get it back. We can reduce it, we can reverse it, but we need to start very soon rather than later, a bit too late.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for those interviews, Mrs. Clifford and Mr. Walker.